Hello and welcome to Acumatica Tips and Tricks, episode number 3, Modern UI versus Classic UI in Acumatica. Let's take a look. You'll see here that I'm logged into Acumatica. I'm working here in 2018 R2, and what I'm looking at right here is the Modern UI, or what Acumatica is calling the Modern UI. You'll see on the left-hand side I have what are called workspaces, and then in the middle I have my screen, which in this case is a dashboard. Now on the left, these are my workspaces, and I can control which workspaces are there by default versus if I scroll down, which ones are here in the More Items area. Let's say I don't want this Projects workspace to be displayed by default. I can click on Projects and just unpin it using this little thumbtack icon. You'll see it disappears from the workspace area on the left-hand side, but if I scroll down to More Items, Projects is still available. If I have the appropriate permissions, I can even go further down to these little 3 dots, then Edit Menu, and I can actually control what is displayed in each workspace, or even come up here and add an entirely new workspace. If I go to the banking workspace, for example, I see all the screens that are currently there. I can go up to the top to add menu item. That would allow me to add a new menu item to this workspace, or add tile, which would add these 4 on the top are tiles. It would add more of a button style menu item. Also, these sections on top, transactions, profiles, credit card processing, these are called categories. I can actually control the categories up here in the menu settings. You'll see here's all the existing categories, including the order that they're displayed in. If I want to change the order, I just drag them around, and then you'll actually see the category sort order get changed on the workspace. Or I can add a category. I can add an entirely new category, give it whatever title I want, and then drag menu items into those categories on the workspace. So that's really the general overall view of the modern UI. But something to be aware of is that the classic UI is actually still there. And the classic UI is bound to something called the sitemap in Acumatica. You actually do security at the sitemap level. And also when you create things like generic inquiries, dashboards, you still have to assign them to the sitemap, which is the classic UI structure, because that's how you assign security. So let's take, for example, let's exit out of this edit menu. Let's go to data views, and here's an example of a generic inquiry, invoiced items. So to browse to it in the modern UI, I just went to data views, inquiries, and I went right to the generic inquiry. But if I look at the actual definition of the generic inquiry, you're going to see that the sitemap location still has to be defined, and this is a little more complicated. It's in finance, accounts receivable, reports, audit, and then that's the folder that my generic inquiry is located in. This sitemap is still the classic UI structure. Now I can still switch back to the classic UI if I want to. Let's go ahead and view inquiry and come up here to my username. I'll go to my profile, and in my user profile I have the option down here to show classic UI by default. I hit save. You'll see the screen should refresh, and now I'm looking at the classic UI. So that same generic inquiry I was looking at before, it was a lot easier to browse to in the modern UI. I could just click into the workspace and it was sitting right there. Now I have to go to finance, accounts receivable, I think it was reports, I don't even remember, and I think it was down here somewhere, invoiced items, there it is. So you can see a lot more layers in the classic UI. A tab up here, another tab, and then you got these 4 tabs here, and then you've got folders even inside the tabs. So just a lot more structure to the classic UI. One thing I have experienced though is that the classic UI does tend to run a little faster. I get a lot more, maybe not a lot more, but a little more delay, lag time with the modern UI refreshing, but I just have to expect that Acumatica will improve that over time. If I flip back to the modern UI, you'll see since Acumatica wants you using that, they make it even more prominent here. I don't even have to go into my user profile, just switch to modern UI. I'm back now to where I started with the modern UI. One thing I really like about this is it's just a very flat navigation. one click and I'm looking at my generic inquiry. Also, the search bar is more prominently displayed, so I can type in that same or part of that same screen name and it filters my menu list down. Also allows me to search transactions, profiles like customer records, help articles, file attachments. I like the new search feature, very prominently displayed. And then I've got my branch or my company branch selector, my business date up on the top. But two different UIs. Yeah, you can still choose either one. I think the modern UI is the way to go forward, but do be aware of the classic UI is still lurking there under the scenes because you do have to put generic inquiries dashboards onto the sitemap, which we looked at over here, which just has that more complicated navigation structure. So it's still there in a way, but from a user standpoint, really they have this nice flat workspace with categories in the workspace and screens underneath it. That's it for today. If you'd like to help me out, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.